Good morning, everyone. In this session, we are going to look at the process of development. Now, let's get started. An important point to emphasize is that development is a political term. It has a range of meanings that depend on the context in which the term is used, and it may also be used to reflect and to justify a variety of different agendas held by different people or organizations. The idea of development articulated by the World Bank, for instance, is very different from that promoted by Greenpeace activists. Now, what it refers to is that it's a process that is subjective in nature. Most of the times, people look at it from different point of view, and that makes it extremely political in nature. So, the context in which development would be used could define, could help gather ideas or concept around what development could mean to each of the individuals or each of the communities, and there is always an agenda behind the process of development. Okay, and it would take its due course of time only when it could be defined in a certain way by a certain group of people. So the idea of development would vary from person to person. That is one the crucial aspects. Okay, when we talk about the process of development, like the example mentioned here, that how development could be defined, how the process of development could be defined from World Bank point of view, which could be econometric in nature, as against Greenpeace activist, which would be largely looking at how the environment is affected because of different kind of developmental policies and their implementation. This point is important. This point has important implications for the task of understanding sustainable development, because much of the confusion about the meaning of the term sustainable development arises because people hold very different ideas about the meaning of development. Like I have told, over a period of time, the definition of development or the concept of development had changed, and it's a forever evolving one, and because it is subjective, naturally people look at it from different point of view. In the last session, we spoke about sustainable development, and now I said that a little bit of economic freedom allows you to actually go buy a bottle of water and then consume it and then throw the bottle. So at that point in time, this is not something that is symbolic of sustainable development. You can't go on buying water bottles, keep consuming water and keep throwing, though we had been doing this for decades now. And imagine the amount of stress it puts on the environment by looking at the ever expanding landfill. Okay, so that's something crucial, how we look at development and which context we look at development. Another important point is that the development is a process rather than outcome. Okay, it's always a work in progress, like I told you. So we have to pay attention to the process rather than looking at development as something that is extremely tangible, and okay, we have reached this stage and then this is it. We are the most developed nation in the world. The most developed nation in the world is also in the state of development all the time. Okay, so they always, as individuals, as communities, as societies, or as part of significant part of the policy making, it is crucial that attention be paid to how development is looked at as. Unless we look at it as a process, unless we look at it as something that is always evolving, we can't say that okay, we have reached this state and this is it, because that's not it. The society is always evolving, and the necessities of the societies are also evolving accordingly. Just to give an example, at this hour, during this pandemic, so many structural changes, so many economic changes happened. People are working from home. There are difficulties and challenges, I'm sure, but the work didn't stop, and most of the people ended up actually doing a lot of online shopping, trying to kind of create a conducive environment to work from home. So this sort of a situation wouldn't have happened if not for the pandemic. So if the society is experiencing any kind of a change, whether it is forced one like a pandemic, or very organic evolving one like policy changes for that matter, we need to understand that all these things contribute to the process rather than just the outcome. So the process of development is always a dynamic one, as mentioned in the slide, that involves a change from one state or condition to another. So we are constantly evolving, right? Ideally, such a change is a positive one, an improvement of some sort, for instance, an improvement in maternal health, which has happened over a period of time. That earlier maternal health policies were not that great. Implementation of those policies were also not something that was satisfactory, but at this point in time, at least some sort of changes has happened. If we at least look at the first world, if we look at our country also, we have uh, grown from whatever state we were as far as the status of our maternal health structure is concerned to wherever we have reached. Though it is still intricately linked to poverty, it's still because large mass is still under poverty line, and because they are poor, they can't. There is a larger possibility that they would lack the maternal health care that they're supposed to have. Furthermore, development is often regarded as something that is done by one group, such as the development agencies, to another, such as rural farmers in a developing country. So it would vary from country to country, community to community. Within the country also, if you look at, for example, in India, if you look at how the healthcare policy is, or how education policy is, the state one I'm talking about, or the implementation part, if you're talking about inside the state of Kerala as against the state of, let's say, my state Odisha, there's a huge difference, right? Why we say that, okay, a particular state is better than the other one? So how do we define better? My state, which is extremely rich with natural resources, mines and minerals, is actually not in a state of saying that we are the most developed state, because we have not reached that level of literacy. We still don't take care of our people the way we should. So as against another state, and it would vary from place to place. So at the smallest unit, if you look at it within the country, this is one example. If you look at India as against in the US or the UK or Australia, you can see the core differences. So here is a little diagram about how the process of development appears like. Okay, so there are two circles, as you can see. There's an inner circle and an outer circle, and we are going to run through all the crucial factors or the points mentioned here. Okay, let's begin with the outer circle and then look at the inner circle. Now the inner circle is something that kind of expands and focuses on whatever is happening outside of the circle and why those areas are crucial. Okay, so process of development could be broken down to cultural development, socio-economic development, and institutional development. So within that framework, what are the structures, or what are the key factors? Let's look at it. It's cyclical in order, as you can see. First is expansion and democratization of knowledge. So unless we democratize knowledge, unless we make knowledge accessible for everyone, it won't be possible. Development won't be possible as a process. That would lead to values of self-direction and universalism. What is self-direction and universalism? That everything is self-directed. The core values that we have must guide us, and those values must be universal in nature, more or less. Okay, because those values are human values. Unless we start looking at it from a dignity point of view, unless we start looking at it from a justice point of view, then we would end up actually just helping ourselves, not the community and the society. The society won't grow on its own. Okay, it would only grow if individuals start contributing, each of them in their own ways. Then we need to integrate and include. So integration and inclusion is a very crucial aspect of the process of development, which means we have to bring in more communities of individuals who are ostracized or who are isolated. So the society needs to integrate its citizens. Then ethical use of power, that is lower corruption control, manipulation, exploitation, etc. So we need to understand that if we have power, and as individuals in whatever capacity we are in, or as policymakers, whatever capacity we are in, what are we doing with that power? Well, are we using that power ethically to integrate and include people, or we are constantly worked by divisive forces? So that's a call we have to take in order to understand, in order to contribute to the process of development. Then democratization of institutions, that is openness, transparency, accountability. We demand, as individual citizens, we must demand that each of the institutions that that are there for human development must be open, must be transparent, and must be accountable, because ultimately those structures are erected on the taxpayers' money. So it's not an individual's prerogative, or it's not a group of people who must control this sort of things. Unless things are open, unless things are transparent and accountable, it would lead to corruption of institutions. Handful of people would become more powerful, and that's problematic in nature, because they would only try to benefit their own communities, or people they like, or people who are close to them, as against everyone. So remember, the key thing here in the process of development is, if everyone wins, then we can call it a win. It's not an individual's win. Okay, so the institutional democratization is extremely important, that things be open and completely transparent, though it doesn't happen in most of the cases. Then decentralization of power and lower hierarchies. So lesser the hierarchy, the easier it would be to communicate ideas. It will be easier to have a healthy, conducive environment where work becomes relatively easier. Then decentralization of power. I mean, there are structural frameworks which are there, which kind of reflects that, okay, there is some sort of decentralization of power that has happened um, in every institution for that matter. But then um, when it comes to contribution, when it comes to outcomes, when it comes to actually seeing the results, we need to kind of look at it from a little critical point of view, and see whether do we actually operate within a decentralized structure or system. Have we lessened hierarchies? Okay, if we hold on to this sort of a feudal mindset of hierarchies, it would not help us grow as a community, and we won't be able to communicate better. Our strategies would fall flat, because um, it would all be, a huge war of egos. Then equality in the distribution of power and wealth, equality of rights and justice. So whatever we have, we need to understand what are our rights and how we can fight for just causes. Most of the times, people who fight for just causes, at least in places like our country, get rewarded. And there are situations and cases that we can witness in contemporary India, where people who are fighting for equality, or people who are fighting for right and what is justice, and bringing in some sort of equality um, to the distribution of power and wealth, are they either end up getting killed because they are called as whistleblowers, people who stand against the atrocious policies, because those sort of policies are not created as an equalizer. They are created so that handful of corporates can get benefited in the process. So we have to understand that part. Then prosperity and equality, that is social equality, on gender, ethnicity, class, ability, opportunities, etc. So when we look at prosperity and equality, we need to pay attention that if we have to see to it there is some sort of socio-economic development that can happen, we need to pay attention to social equalities, the gender equality, ethnicity, class, ability, and opportunities from a very serious point of view. Unless we do so, we would not grow. There won't be any kind of socio-economic development or cultural development. We can't leave people and say that, okay, they are the others, they are the marginalized communities, or they are the marginalized linguistic communities, or that gender. This authorization is constantly problematic. Okay, if we want to prosper truly as a nation, we need to integrate, we need to include, and the more inclusive a space becomes, the more conducive it becomes to work. Your working environment, your studying environment becomes conducive. It becomes learner centric, and the attention is not shifted to unwanted directions. And then we can, march on the road of prosperity and equality in the same way. And the moment this happens, the moment uh, we move from stage A of socioeconomic development to stage B or stage 3, it would help us gain some sort of autonomy, and it would help us self-determine ourselves. We will be more confident people. Okay, right from individuals to communities and societies, we will become an autonomous um, bodies. We will be more self-deterministic in nature, and that would largely contribute to some sort of positive social change or the other. Then next part is crucial, like I said, sustainability. So unless we are um, creating an environment of sustainability, uh, every developmental process, every developmental idea, every developmental concept would fall flat eventually. We would see for ourselves the mistakes that the previous generation did, or the previous generation did. We pay a price for that. Okay, we reached a stage where population has expanded to such a possibility that a lot of people are dropping out to have children at this point, and they're making a conscious choice to do so, because it's high time people realize that it's not possible anymore. um, and if individuals don't pull their socks off and start looking at it from a sustainability point of view, we would reach a situation of chaos. We already have reached a situation of chaos. I mean, just for the fact that we are becoming poor, right? We are becoming poor because there is um, lack of job opportunities. We say that our education has reached X stage, Y stage, but that's not true. That's not true in the sense that when we looked at world economy, when we looked at the first world nations, if we are looking at it from a framework of development, then just look at the healthcare facilities that they have, the public healthcare facilities that they have, as against the public healthcare facilities we have. Okay, handful of corporates governing and trying to open hospitals, providing the best healthcare facilities, which would be again conducive for only um, bunch of people who can afford that. So what about rest of the people? So we need to understand that when we look at health and education, which are two very crucial pillars of development, um, equality be brought in one way or the other. So public healthcare system and public education, uh, bettering them would help us achieve sustainability in one way or the other, and that would be actually uh, conducive when we look at the process of development. That would be something that would bring in some sort of positive social change, because they would be able to contribute. This community, which has been poor for such a long period of time, would be eventually brought into a stage where they get the best healthcare facilities, and they can sustain and survive. They don't die out of just hunger. They don't die out of poor healthcare system, negligent health structure. uh, and if they are in a better health condition, and they get the best opportunity to educate themselves, they can truly evolve and contribute to the process of development. The process of development could be defined as a natural process, like all natural process is beyond our control and over which we have very limited influence. But nevertheless, within our limited influence, we have to do the power to understand it and to facilitate and let it happen. And if it happens, it does improve the condition of the society. Now, this is something that is contestable in nature, but it's spoken about in a certain context. That why it is beyond our control. Whatever is within our control, because everything, we don't govern everything. Whatever is our limited reach and limited influence, within that, what are we doing to facilitate those kind of things? And it can it can happen with the tiniest of efforts. Let's say, for example, within your community, wherever you reside, if there is a public library, so what can we do? If it's a residential society, or if it's a colony, or then bringing people together to work towards having a community library, or going to different scouting different places, which are, let's say, bastis and all these kind of places, where there are a lot of kids who drop out of school, and who because of lack of opportunity, or because of their poor economic condition, the parents force them to go and engage in child labor, because that's the only way some amount of income can come in for their sustainability. So they can't have formal education despite the best efforts. Then should they not learn? So maybe taking classes for them weekly once, or in some sort of place, or providing them with some books, some reading material, helping them to learn basics. Those things are within our control, right? This is something that we can happen. We can let it happen. So though it is a natural organic process, which is not within our control, these are the things that we can possibly do to facilitate development. Societies do not develop naturally. Societies can either develop, remain stationary, or regress, depending on inhibiting or facilitating internal factors to the system, or external factors in the surrounding environment. What are we doing in order to change that status quo? That status quo could be of development in different ways. Now, unless we try to facilitate these sort of internal factors that we spoke about in the last slide, things won't change. So we have to look at it from a holistic point of view. Then another diagram of social development. So there is ethicality and sustainability. I spoke about it. Why we need to be ethical in nature, and how we need to look at sustainability if we want to achieve social development of one kind or the other. Now let's look at the inner circle and see how the social health and the social strength of a certain community, or certain society, or a certain country is affected by these factors. Okay, begin with healthcare. I have spoken a lot about healthcare by now, that unless public healthcare systems are better off, we can't call ourselves a socially developed nation. Freedom for all people, freedom of every kind, freedom that the Constitution guarantees, to see to it that people are free enough to take decisions, and free enough as in they're not bound by the institutions, they're not bound by the, the the regime or the dispensation. So they are free within the constitutional framework to choose things. Then integration, bringing in more number of people, more communities to integrate and to include, to see to it that they develop. So once they develop, they would be in a state where they can continue that process of development, or they can contribute. Then tolerance. Are we a tolerant nation? Are we a tolerant community? As individuals, are we tolerant enough? Are we tolerant enough to understand the repercussions of caste, the repercussions of gender differences? How do we see these things? Do we see these things in isolation? So unless we become tolerant, unless we become tolerant, we won't be able to contribute to social development, because the challenges are too many, the conflicts are too many. How do we keep those conflicts at bay and actually move forward to contribute to social development? So kind of reevaluating what are the factors that contribute to those kind of things, and then seeing to it that we do our bit in order to reflect upon a state of tolerance. Then support each and every human individual who needs, and in the process somebody else should be doing. It's a chain reaction, guys. So we get the support, then we must also contribute, and we must also support other people who are marginalized, other people who lack resources, other people who lack opportunities. So it's hand in hand sort of a thing. Then stability and security. I'll talk about it by putting them together. Okay, so creating a solid, stable foundation on which each of these factors can truly sustain itself and build itself. Okay, whether it is healthcare system, education, taking care of basic amenities, looking at it from an environmental point of view, create stable systems, not unstable systems which will go off. Create stable policies, not policies which will just go vanish in 5 years time, because the governments keep on changing. So in such sort of a situation, what we do, did they create something that the next government is going to take it forward? So a lot of thinking through must be done. Then do you feel secured in the country? Do you feel secured in the community? Just for the fact that there are two different kind of timings for boys and girls, and there's something at the smallest unit in the family. This sort of an on-set rule is there that boys can stay away from the house or stay out till 11 o'clock, and the girls need to come back at 8 o'clock. It's 2020. Then if we are not creating a secure atmosphere for our women to go to work, women to work out freely, wherever they want to, pretty much like our boys, then we can't call ourselves a secure nation. We can't call ourselves a secure society. Look at the amount of gender atrocities that happen on an everyday basis. At domestic level, outside of it also, number of sexual assault cases. Unless people feel secured, people won't be able to think at the first place. Okay, and it is definitely reflective of the state we are in. We can't call ourselves a socially developed nation where there is not this kind of basic guarantee to a particular gender. And I'm talking about the third gender as well. Okay, then prosperity. We spoke about it, that we would only prosper if we are allowed to grow holistically, economically, and in a better state. Then justice for all. Everybody should fight for just causes. Everybody should look at justice for each one of us. Equality. We must be in a state of equality, all of us. Okay, equality is something that our constitution guarantees, and we must always upheld that health, something that I spoke about. So these are the factors that largely contribute to social development. In the process of development, we need to look at what structure is. First of all, we have to define the structure of the system. Okay, we previously modeled society as a complex system formed by the interaction of institutions, culture, socio-economic relations, and human nature. Interactions of institution, one institution to other, how healthcare contributes to education, how education contributes to healthcare, how how NGOs contribute to the government organizations, how as individuals, if we consider ourselves, how are we interacting or we engaging with different kind of institutions, what are we doing? The society is a complex structure, but how do we simplify that? By breaking down different areas or different core values and contributing to that factor. Each element in itself is a complex entity, right from an individual to, like I said, your family is not organized by you. There are different people, and different people would have different ideas, and they can come in conflict with each other. So there are institutional complexities, there are cultural complexities, there are socio-economic complexities, and it increases as and when the society progresses. But we need to integrate them. We need to value and see that how cultural diversity can only better a society, instead of being restricted to your own community, being restricted to one linguistic identity by one food palette, this sort of thing. Your knowledge would not expand. And similarly, institutional values would only be upgraded only when people working in those institutions are open enough to understand that why cultural diversity, or why an evolving society requires free thinking individuals, people who are not people who think out of those, people who are not constantly boxed or bogged down by one set of ideas, a unidimensional thought for that matter. Institutional process, institutional, cultural, socio-economic development is the process by which the increase in complexity, higher complexity, general means higher differentiation and integration of the constitution part. So we have to constantly do this sort of a value equation and see that the more the differentiation, the more integration is required, because that's the only situation when we can truly achieve social development. We can truly achieve a state of integration by looking at what sort of relations we have within our communities, and how, uh, if any difference that is there, how to bring it down and how to integrate ourselves into a structure and a system. On institutional development, higher differentiation and integration is related with democratization process, lower hierarchy and decentralization of power. Something that I spoke about, that how the more democratic the processes and systems and structure become, it will be easier to integrate, and attention be paid to social equality and higher individual freedom. To see to it that socioeconomic development can happen, we need to look at higher differentiation and integration in relation to social equality and higher individual freedom. Then higher differentiation and integration related to democratization of knowledge, shift up from traditional values to the values of self-determination, equality and tolerance. Cultural development is the process by which culture passes to be from an instrument of control to a means of social integration and personal emancipation and development. So basically what we're trying to say is, the structures are there, and then the structures are complex in nature, and it could only be broken down to a system which is all encompassing in nature, which is democratic in nature. The knowledge that we have, we must pass on. The knowledge that we have acquired over a period of time from all our traditional value systems and structures must help us become more self-deterministic in nature, must help us bring in some sort of equality and tolerance in the society. So by achieving those things, we would be in a state of better control and really emancipate things. Sorry. Then development depends on the mutual dependence of three social aspects, that is cultural, institutional, and socio-economic. I've been talking about it for a long period of time, so hope it is clear by now. Development therefore cannot be understood or not happens as a consequence in any of these aspects in isolation. So we can't just look at cultural, or we can't just look at institutional or socio-economic development and say that we have developed truly. We can only be in that state of development provided we have a certain outlook and approach towards integrating these things. So the cultural, the culture aspect of development can't be looked at in isolation, or the institutional one or the socio-economic one. So it must integrate itself. So the system not only develops through cultural, institutional and socio-economic development, but also through their higher integration. Like I said, higher integration between these dimensions means culture, institutions and socio-economic orders that facilitate their mutual development. So they grow within themselves and they grow together, they stay aligned and help us become a better place to live in. So that's about the process of development. Hope this session is useful, and then I'll see you in the next session. In the next session we are going to touch upon theories. We begin with the theories, and thank you. I'll see you in the next session.